At the end of the day, a head injury affects everybody differently. 90% of concussions, you don't go unconscious. So you can get concussion from a hit, you can get concussion from a whiplash, like all these little things that people don't think about. I'm just fortunate enough to have such a, a track record to know like more than the average person about having to, deal and overcome with this.
What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the Struggle to Strength podcast, your source for real life application on how to turn your struggles into strengths in all things mind, muscle, and money. Dude, that was a good app. That was a really good app. Yeah, that was very, very conversational, but Nick's a good dude. So
yeah, we got. I think we hit all of the important information, like what is a concussion, what's going on, how can you recover from it, habits that you can do, nutrition, supplements, like pretty much ran the gamut on this one.
And also answered the question that I think everybody has of like, do you need to do brain games for brain health? Like, do you really need to do that? And like, what is brain health? So I feel a lot better as someone who has not been very nice to my brain for some parts of my life and who has also hit my head, and you've hit your head quite a bit. This made me feel a lot better, less anxious, less guilty about my brain and how I've treated it and what I'm doing to make it better. And it turns out that I'm already doing quite a few of the things that I need to. So if you're listening to this and you've hit your head, or you have participated with drugs and alcohol and not been so nice to your brain, this is a great episode for you. It'll make you feel better physically, mentally, emotionally, and also give you some really good things that you can do to continue to feel better and take good care of your brain. So I took a ton of notes. I recommend y'all probably want to have a notepad ready. There's some good recommendations here. Nick's going to send more. So welcome NeuroFit Nick, my buddy Nick Krantz. And I hope you guys enjoy this episode. We'll see you inside.
What's your story like, and how'd you get up to what you're doing now, kind of?
Okay. Hey guys, it's me again. But yeah, I mean, kind of like I grew up in actually the same city I am now. I grew up a skater boy. I was never forced to play sports, never did. But I think I look back at, I grew up in a kind of like a secretive alcoholic home. Grew up in a white picket fence type style till my mom left when in fifth grade. She turned out to be an alcoholic, which then down spiraled my dad, and my sister followed the same path. And I think looking back, my outlet was skateboarding. We was able to skate in the basement because we had a basement that could fit us, and we were able to skate outside, and that's all we did until ninth grade came around. I got tucked into playing basketball, so I cut my shaggy hair and picked up sports. And it was kind of really when I started to fall in love with training. My dad was always jacked, but he never pushed me to work out. But that's when I was like, okay, if I run harder, I can already jump good because skateboarding, and I'm starting to see results just from I just had this drive. And I think that was also where I learned that my second outlet was training. So then I get talked into playing football my sophomore year. I'm 147 and a half pounds. By my senior year, I'm 205, and I started to have some D1 offers. And then going into my senior year, I get a call from the Stork, saying that I was going to be a dad within 9 months. And so my life came fast. And so I ended up decommitting from a school that I thought was close enough. And then I just went to a D2 school that was 9 minutes down the road because I wanted to choose family over football. And, that's kind of when my head injury started because, I like we just talked about. I mean, they weren't talked about much then. But, my freshman year, I tore my groin, rehab, come back. Following year, I tore my left labrum, rehab, come back. So I was always into that resiliency mode of like, I need to find a way to get back, crawling, really doing anything I can because I had a young kid to take care of. And you're not thinking in the future. I just want to play football forever. And so, going into my junior year, I'm, projected to be all conference and, all this is in my head. So I'm like, okay, I got to keep playing. And so I go into practice. This is where my downfall happens, going to practice during the week on a Tuesday. And this is during scout team, kid catches the ball, whistle blows. So I stop, but the kid keeps running at me, just a freshman kid. And, I just put my head down, absorb it all. He falls, I stand up. And the first time I saw like purple, I'm like, go to the sideline. I'm like, yo, I'm like, Cook, man, I think I'm seeing purple. He's like, no, Krantz, you good, man. And so what do? You say, yeah, I am good because, you're putting the team first. I need to play. And so, 2 days later, we go up Michigan Tech, which is in the Upper Peninsula. So it was a 14-hour bus trip. So my body is just depleted, about as about as tired as you can get. And so get up to a game and, I just can't get pumped up. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I'm just not excited. I'm just a zombie. I'm like, go team. Here we go. And, I had 3 huge hits on a 17-play drive. And I was the only one that didn't get subbed out, but I'm like, I think I can't see. And then on the last play of on the drive, they score, and you see everybody going right, and I just collapse left, but I just get up and go back to the sideline. And the only person was there, I go to sit on the bench, my buddy sit, and he's like, I just remember somebody saying like, all right, Krantz going back in. And I'm like, I just need a break. I just can't see. And, that's when my buddy pulled me aside, and like, we just started, I don't know what happened, but I just remember being in a field for like the rest of the game. That was really the last game I played. But the thing is, it took me about 9 months to recover. And that was called second impact syndrome, having 2 big hits back to back and basically spiking your levels of, the neuroinflammation, the toxins going inside your body, is really what was my downfall. Because, you could have taken time to step back, recharge, and maybe played again in 2 weeks. But it's okay. This is part of my story. And so that really what ended my career. But I was always known as Coach Nick or Coach Krantz, because whether I was hurt, injured, high school or college, I was always still there. So that's really where I fell in love with coaching. I ended up coaching there like officially for 2 years. And then I just got a job at the juvenile jail that I've been working at, because, as a young father, I need to pay the bills, and football was no longer in the picture. So as I'm working there, as time went on, I'm like, I've always been obsessed with nutrition and training. So I'm just going to get a nutrition certification, and I go ahead and get one. And then I'm like, okay, now where are these clients? Like, what do I do? Like, it's just a piece of paper. They just said, congrats. So I started working at this local gym, specialized in sports performance and athletes. So I love that. And I started working Gem Pop clients, and really started just like building my online platform in 2018. And, I kind of realized like, wow, I could, impact more than just this local area right here in Cleveland. And so I started to just connect and learn, and, really learning from Jordan's side at first, and just learning how to kind of grow an audience and then build it, and then just try and impact as many as I could. And so 2019, I started taking my business online, and, by midsummer, I was full time. I was like, this is awesome. And then December 7, 2019, I had my second traumatic brain injury. And I think that's when the wheels kind of fell off big time, because I just thought, I've been through it. I could do this. It wasn't one of those things where it's like, I was in a car accident and I was in a coma. Like, at that point, it was my 16th concussion, and it was my second major one. And I didn't want to tell many people, because I had just kind of had my business. And so I wanted to pretend like everything was okay. But as time started to kind of unravel, it wasn't. As I can kind of go more in depth, but like the last 3.5 years, it felt like really a decade. And to be sitting here, like happy, feeling good, not, my eyes aren't hurting, not like thinking about my health. I'd say 3 months ago, we'd have a different story. It'd be up and down, but right now, like, I've come a long way to be sitting here and chatting with you guys and feeling real good, and confident, not just being optimistic and confident, from everything that just kind of surfaced throughout my health over the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Also, like, that's one of the first questions I was going to ask too, is like, from your experience, was it one big concussion, or was it, a lot of kind of steady smaller ones? Because that's for like, my experience playing football, it was like, I feel like I was getting, like, back then I felt like in my gut, like I was getting concussions every time, every practice, every game, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But then the information that was being told to me was different. It was like, no, you're fine. So, but I did totally, in my gut, I was like, this feels whack. And which is, that's why I eventually like stopped, because yeah. And so, yeah, I think it's kind of important to identify that, or describe, what actually is a concussion. Because I think a lot of people are thinking car accident, unconscious, like full on brain damage, but that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah. And I think the more I've learned and talked to others, like, at the end of the day, a head injury affects everybody differently. But everybody's like, well, is it classified as this? Is it classified as that? A head injury is a major injury. It's not something you can see. It's something that is underneath the surface. And 90% of concussions, you don't go unconscious. So you can get concussion from a hit, you can get concussion from a whiplash, like all these little things that people don't think about. And I'm just fortunate enough to have such a, I don't know, I guess a track record to know like more than the average person about having to, deal and overcome with this. And so like, my situation, there was really the two major ones that were back to back in college, but over the years, all the ones that kind of stacked up, like working at the juvenile jail, it was never a kid or anything. It was always just a dumb thing. Like I tackled a kid into a wall. That hurt. The cement walls are hurt. I had a staff's elbow hit me in the head. That hurts. And it feels like, you just feel like almost like disassociated from your body. Like you feel very, very drunk. You feel very just spacey. Like it kind of really affects everybody else, but differently, but like you still feel that same kind of feeling. And it wasn't until like 2019 that I felt like Space Jam, like my soul was sucked out of me. Like something was way off. But I, at the end of the day, like I still had to pretend and just basically, like I said, how my track record was, like I thought I could take care of it. It wasn't like I went to the hospital right away. I need everybody to like take care of me. Like I just was like, I'm just going to try and figure this out. And that's where it kind of failed me. But when it comes to that, like I said, like if you are having symptoms after, 2 weeks, like it's time to probably get checked in. I think 3 months now constitutes, they changed it to persistent concussion syndrome instead of post-concussion syndrome, whatever, PCS. And then if it's years, like how I was, like, they kind of lose hope and faith in you after a while.
Man, that's wild. So I imagine the more times we hit our head, the more susceptible we are to experiencing those more severe symptoms, right?
Yeah.
So like all of us here, it sounds like, and maybe this is just the way the world is. I always felt like I hit my head a lot compared to my peers. And maybe that's just the way the world is. Like if you played sports growing up, you hit your head a lot. Mm-hmm. But as we get older, and this is kind of what was the catalyst for this conversation and reaching out to you, is as we get older, it feels like we are more susceptible to more serious repercussions from hitting our head, from brain injuries. And so Travis was talking to me. He had hit his head a few weeks ago, or maybe it was like a month ago or something. And
yeah, it was like a month or month and a half.
I remember you reaching out.
Yeah. And Travis had noticed, and I agreed with him. He's like, man, I feel like I don't recover like I used to. Like if I hit my head, like it lasts longer. And I completely agree. And I've experienced head injuries both from, like actually falling and hitting my head, or man, I like almost knocked myself out on a hack squat one time. Dude, that was wild because it felt like someone hit me in the head with a baseball bat.
Yeah.
But, and I still don't quite know what it was, but as we're getting older, it seems like it's harder to recover. So do you notice the same thing, or is it as we hit our heads more? Is it like an age thing, or is it how many times we've hit our head thing?
I mean, it's a combination of definitely both.
Okay.
I mean, I think the major factor is definitely how many times, because at the end of the day, that adds up. Especially over time, like trying to heal and recover with, my 2 younger kids, like, and them bumping me and stuff, like, and all the, basically what, came to light was like I had an infection right where my injury was, on the top of your brain is something called the meninges, and that's right where an infection had occurred. It had stayed for over, almost 2 years undiagnosed, and that was, not to mention like all the GI issues I had from the toxins going back and forth on that constant highway back and forth. But the more I kept hitting my head, like that's just more toxins and inflammation that are just surfacing. And so if there's, high levels of inflammation that stay in your brain, those neurons aren't going to be able to get revived over time. Like basically when you have maybe one, like you said, like one later in life, all of a sudden that, something severe change your life, having a concussion, you can really reset your building blocks. Like you're not done and dead for. Like you can, start to learn more about your diet, about recovery, about taking time to, get extra movement in. You got to go to physical therapy, stuff like that. But if you've had so much damage done to your brain over time, like it takes a lot more effort and a lot more understanding of how to kind of rebuild what's going on inside. Because sometimes, like I said, there's some of the neurons aren't going to be able to fire back up. Like they've been just basically poisoned and toxin to death to regenerate. So that's why it's like even important now, like I see, a lot of the coaches and stuff saying like, oh, it doesn't matter, seed oils and, all these toxins and flames. Like I get that for like the general population, but I have to be so cautious, like every food and every substance that goes into my body around it, because it can either affect my brain or not. Like basically the easiest question now is like, is this good for my brain? Yes or no? Okay. Easy. I'm going yes or no. It's just that much easier for me to kind of understand. And people really don't understand and think about how important their brain health is until, it's the last thing that you need to really get your health back.
Yeah. I feel like you take it for granted a lot. A lot of people take a lot of their bodily functions for granted, especially the brain.
Yeah.
Because so is there a number? Like, cause there's just so much like it to me, it seems like the answer would be no. It's probably different for everybody. And there's so many different factors, but like, you hear different things. Like I've been told like, well, if you have four concussions, you have permanent brain damage, whatever. There's all kinds of different like things that people like to say. And like, I've had like probably 10. So it's like, you hear shit like, I just want to be very clear about that. Cause like you hear stuff like that and then it adds on, like if you do have like a brain injury, like the first thing, like, any concussion where you're like having like the symptoms, one of the first things that I notice is like a new level of like depression and a feeling of kind of like hopelessness, which I think then is compounded if you feel like, well, now I'm fucked for life. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, dude, that's that's the worst thing. Like if you're experiencing something where you're now physically more prone to like a feeling of depression and hopelessness, and then information is telling you you're fucked for life. That's like the worst thing that you can hear. You know what I mean? So is there like a number or like, what's the kind of threshold, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a doctor in that sense, like to say that, but once again, like it's all different. I know that from thinking back, like it was like 3 and you're done. Like, when people would say like, dude, it's definitely 3. But then again, like when you're told this information, like who's telling you and what are their like protocols they're trying to give you? I think I look back and I was never told about nutrition. I was never told about how to optimize sleep. I was never told, what maybe exercise I need to do to kind of restart my nervous system to really, build back up that resiliency. There's so many people and information I had to freaking do on my own while I was so sick to like just get my life back. The average person, I'm like I said, I'm lucky to be in the field where I'm like, I know a little bit more about nutrition and training than the average person that just has a head injury. I couldn't imagine trying to sift through all this information, because when a specialist, I think back to the first group of medical team that I had, they said, at the end of my second stint of therapy, basically said, I just think it's all in your head. I think you just need to continue to see your, psychiatrist, and, maybe we'll see you again in 6 months, and basically shoot you off. And could you imagine being somebody that's like a not general pop, but like, somebody's first injury, and like, that's what they're told after they, just basically treated one symptom. But, I had all these questions that I was learning about how it impacts your gut, how it impacts, other just all these questions I had. They thought I was like trying to show them up. I'm like, yo, I just want my life back. I don't have a lawsuit. I'm trying to win. I'm not faking this. You get placed in this box. And as you would know, like being, snowboard and skater, like and being an athlete, I can do your little 1 foot hold for whether how drunk I feel or not. Like, I'm not Stanley that's 58 that just fell. Like I'm 30 at the time. Like I can do all this stuff as drunk as I am right now. Like, and so you get placed in this box, and like basically you're in this algorithm. Okay, you have depression, you have this, try this medicine. Awesome, doesn't work. Like, so you're basically like, it's kind of to rebound your question. Like it's just all different, and it's really just body dependent. I mean, there's sometimes when you have to pull out sooner. I'm a father of 3, so I apologize for saying that. But it's you really just know like your brain is very capable of healing. But there's just so much that goes into it. If you have to get put in that situation, I just wouldn't put my eggs all in one basket of a doctor or specialist that's highly regarded to be able to handle your life. Because at the end of the day, you are full control of healing your own body with all the information that you have and tools.
Yeah, that's one of the things I'm really fascinated about your work, is the type of like physical therapy, as you call it, which is when people think of physical therapy, they don't think of your brain. People typically don't think you can do physical therapy for your brain. Isn't that just like math or whatever? Like, so,
Yeah.
so what if we hit our head, what is the type of protocol that we should be following in your opinion? And then for those of us who have hit our head or like have done damage to our brain in some way, whether it's injury, drugs and alcohol, like whatever it is, if we want to sustain optimal brain health for a longer period of time, it's something that I definitely have an anxiety about. What should we do? Like how do we do that?
Yeah. And I think it's being more talked about, like mainstream now, like brain health is sexy, but like what is brain health, like
Yeah, exactly.
like, but people know like, okay, well, if I wake up feeling foggy or if like I went out drinking, like, yeah, what bad like that fog is, like that's your brain saying like, dang, what the hell was that? Like like one night of bad sleep is like you feel awful. I think looking back, I mean, at the end of the day, if you do hit your head, like going anti-inflammatory diet is huge because people immediately want to be like, oh, I just need some comfort food. I don't feel well. Like I'll just eat some Oreos and, basically just feeding your inflammation. That's the fire inside of your brain. So, your brain and your gut are intimately connected. So when you think like, man, I'm feeling nervous. Okay. You feel that in your gut. Okay. Like I'm feeling stress. I'm feeling angry. You could feel that feeling in your gut. Like, so it's not just some woo-woo thing. Like it's literally there. And so like eating anti-inflammatory foods, making sure that you're getting any type of fish, like, it's not everybody likes fish. Yeah, you might have to season it up, but you need to make sure you're eating fish at least 2 to 3 times a week. And talk about physical therapy, like, this is something I have to do almost every day for the rest of my life if I want to make sure that my eyes are working and balance. So when you think of physical therapy, you think of a lot of eye movements. Your retina is the only thing outside of your body that has brain neurons in it. Like your brain and your eyes relay the message back to your brain of what is. So like when you do have a head injury, your eyes are usually the first to go, which is why I have to wear these freaking glasses now because my vision is atrocious. And so, and then like even talking about like nutrition in general and just personal training, the foundations are everything. So I think if you can have a basics of, making sure you get enough hydration and water, electrolytes are also key, making sure that sleep is absolutely a pillar and a foundation of your health. I think it's often overlooked, and especially a lot of the younger generation, like, yeah, we've all been there and want to go out and want to grind all day, get your business, get your clients, you want your girlfriend, you got, all this. And it's like, hey, you're missing out on, if you talk to any of the highest performers, like sleep is their safeguard. Like you need to have a structured routine. And all the woo-woo stuff that really, looking back, you told me 4 years ago, like I'd start meditation or I'd be out in nature and grounding. Like I would have been like, dude, okay. But like now it's like, thinking just like, reading the literature and just like, dude, I was willing to do anything to get an ounce. Like, I don't even care if it moves the needle 0.08%. Like I was going to do it because I needed it. And so like, when it comes to meditation, all meditation simply means is to become familiar with. And so that just means being your thoughts. So if I was already thinking like I was going to feel sick that day and my body was already looking for, that fog, that pain, that depression, it was going to feed it because it knew the feeling. And so it's not until you're able to kind of detach away from that feeling of just the constant pain and suffering that you're able to just be like, I'm not going to future project. I'm not going to send inflammatory signals to myself because I'm already going to feel like, or I got hit by my kid. Like you can already make it worse by your response in general. And so I really had to slow time down. And so that was the only way to do it. And so I was just reading Joe Dispenza and like, he's like, okay, he's been through a TBI before and just, I'm like, I'm willing to do whatever. And so the woo-woo worked for me. Not saying it's for everybody, but there's a lot of people that are like, dude, I'm thinking about like my friends like, yeah, okay, bro. Like, no, it wouldn't do it. But like, it's not until you're in a situation that you're willing to do it, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Let's get him.
I'd love to define like some of those things, like, so not necessarily like right after injury, like how to recover, but just day to day, how to maintain good brain health. Like, what are your favorite kind of habits? Like you mentioned meditation, stuff like that. And then what is your favorite like diet, as in foods to eat, foods not to eat? And then what, if any, supplements do you utilize?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I have my duffel bag full of my pharmacy.
I was gonna say you said duffel bag, and I was like, yeah, that resonates with me. Yeah, it's like a lot of pills.
I just carry it wherever I go, honestly.
Yeah.
Especially when I was sick, I bring it everywhere.
I use a tack box.
Yeah. Okay.
Like a fishing tack box, and
Yeah.
I just open that up because the ones that you get from Walgreens, the cute little ones that are like
Yeah.
Sunday through the week of like Sunday through Sunday. I'm
They
like,
don't
oh, that's
fit.
cute. That's
Yeah.
that's I can put half of my morning in that.
Yeah, my wife got me those, and I'm like, these aren't fitting. Like, thanks, but like, dude, they're not fitting. So it's just like, well, I'll just put some in this side, and like it's divided by throughout the day. But definitely, like I said, as soon as I wake up, like one of the big things, no, is like checking the phone. I mean, that immediately takes you out of your ability to kind of reprogram your subconscious. Like even getting back to like talking about, by the time you're 35, basically who you are, what you think, act, react, respond is already built into your supercomputer that is your brain. So if you ever want to, really be conscious and change what it is you want to do, you want to get healthy, you want to change your lifestyle habits, it starts by being able to be conscious. But 95% of who you are is stored in your subconscious. So how the heck can you tackle the 5%? And that starts with right away. And that starts with visualization. See, obviously I'm still going to speech therapy. Not check the phone right away. Wow. Super simple. And so right then and there, it's when hydration starts, 10 to 20 ounces of water, along with LMNT. You don't have to get electrolytes, but you just, add some sea salt in your water, and might not taste good at the beginning, but purpose over pleasure. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And now that the sun's, coming out a little bit, I'm making sure that I'm getting outside to kind of reset my circadian rhythm, and then just getting out in nature and just being out quiet. Birds are chirping. I like the little things again, in life. But as I think about it, as the day goes, like just being present and having kind of not disorganized, because if you're able to meditate in the morning and basically compartmentalize all of the thoughts that are coming, like at the end of the day, your thoughts aren't who you are. Like you don't have to attach to anything, but being able to step back and watch them kind of go across and be like, okay, that one just popped. I didn't need to show any sign of that. Like, but that's what it is for the morning. Like you allow yourself to kind of set yourself up for success that day by slowing it down, so that by the time the day speeds up, that you don't feel like you're crawling from behind. And that's what meditation does. And so like daily walks is always that always helped me. But for anybody that just wants to get extra steps in, wants to get blood flow to the brain, what's good for the brain is good for the heart. So getting your steps in, and also just getting outside. You don't need to bring headphones. You can just go out and just be. And
that's the best way to do it, in my opinion.
Dude,
that's where a lot of creative energy comes from. And just like, everybody thinks like I need to be distracted. Like, okay, like what are you distracting yourself from? What are you hiding from? Like, just sit with yourself. I dare you
just
to
breathe and walk.
That's it. A lot
You'll feel so much better.
The new clients, I'm like, dude, you might not have meditated before. It's okay. Just sit down for 1 minute. I dare you, just sit there and be with yourself. Like, what is it that you're hiding from? What's feelings, emotions are starting to come up that you're like, like what is something you need to do? What is something you've been holding back? What is something you want to do? Like, just sit there and be. But then, coming full circle, like, really the diet that I followed at first was AIP. It was an autoimmune paleo diet. But really, like I said, it's just the foundation. Like, just give me the, good for your brain, get your eggs, get your, grass-fed beef, get your chicken, fish. I know a lot of people there are things with fish, but like try and cook it a different way. It doesn't have to be like literally no seasoning. Like nobody's going to go out.
I love fish.
Liver King's going to go out to the pond and go ahead and eat it. Like, dude, sick. That's awesome. I'm sure your kids are loving every bit of that, man. So it's like, no, you can go ahead and spice up your salmon with some, pineapple sauce. Like there's so many different recipes out there. But for me, when it comes to like, your carbs, like it's oatmeal, sweet potatoes, white rice. Like I just keep it super simple. I of course I do. There's some gluten-free mint Oreos that just hit the shelves at Aldi, so I snag those. But I do know, like if when I was super sick and really having issues with inflammation, I know that the next day would be like I was hungover. So now it's just being cautious. but you know, and then, you know, when it comes to like veggies, like, yeah, you need to eat your veggies. You're not a child, like eat your veggies. But
Yeah.
like, you know, I know a lot of people definitely don't get enough omega-3s in. So that's why it's always good to supplement with omega-3s. There's a lot of new research with creatine being, obviously not a steroid. It's not gonna, you know, make you lose your hair. I promise I'm not bald. I still have some, I like the buzz cut. That there's so much cognitive benefits that they started giving it to people in nursing home a couple of years ago, that all of a sudden like, oh wow, this is actually good for freaking everything. So, you know, that's why I put my 14-year-old on it for other obvious like sports performance, but like there's so like I can tell his mom like yo, this is like not like thinking about me back in high school, like trying to take it whatever, you know, like this is actually, you know, backed by science now. So he's not gonna like have roid rage or something. You know, but the other, like caffeine. I mean, I just take caffeine tablets. I was always nervous, you know, kind of putting anything in my body. So I just take it down the hatch, 200 milligrams. Well, it's more like 400, 600 now, because they put me on Adderall right away after my injury. So they were basically just trying to drug me alive to show the world that I was okay. And so now I'm like down to like 3 milligrams. I was up to like 60 to 80, and just my nervous system was
Adderall
screaming for help.
Like,
there was a lot of reasons why I was like, damn. I mean, you have an injury, your nervous system's already dysregulated to begin with, and so when you add that literal street drug of meth, like, I mean, yeah, of course I liked it because it helped me just feel alive, but in the long like scheme of things, like it was so bad. And so I literally, I'm down to like pebbles. I'm like, I just want to just get off of it. Like, and so like, I really had to do like almost like a whole rehaul of supplements to like basically reuptake my dopamine sensors to begin with. And so like, if I were to say staples, I mean, it's like fish oil, creatine, caffeine. I mean, obviously caffeine has its own benefits to begin with in general for your brain. There's something called ginkgo biloba. It helps with blood flow to the brain as well. Like it's really, you can find it anywhere. But I think that's really good. As I even think, I want to look in my book bag, be like, I know one of the subs that I definitely will continue to always have is my Neuroflam. It's like neuroinflammation supplement, but the one that I just started taking was the NAD plus nose spray that I would say is what radically changed my healing for the last 2 months. Because, you know, you can take all the supplements you want. You could eat all the healthy food, but if your gut is in disarray and it has to go back down your stomach, back up into your head, it's never going to be able to make it. So like, that's why all of a sudden I started taking this NAD spray, and it just went straight to my nose, to my brain, and really started to regenerate certain cells, started to just clear up the inflammation. And I noticed within 2 days, like, I was like, dude, am I me?
Wow.
Like, I think I'm me. And so I'm like, I'm not going to like, you know, I've had this optimism before. Like I've had a week that I'm good, and next thing you know, like a month later, I'm like, dude, I'm me. Like, and so now it's been 2 months. And like, you know, I said 3 months ago at Christmas, like I was throwing up because I was overstimulated, and, you know, my family was in town, and it's embarrassing. You know, you're a man that looks super healthy and you're about as sick as it could be. And it's like, to be able to show up again and provide and just be yourself, like, dude, it's incredible.
Yeah.
What's the NAD spray?
NAD plus nasal spray. I just ordered like 2 of them. They're on back order from Empower. I could send you the direct link.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there another way of taking it besides nasal spray? Because I can't like put anything up my nose.
There is like, there's intramuscular injections, and then there's also like tablets. I did buy some off. I could send that to you. It's like, I saw this while I waited for this nasal spray that's supposed to be like 10 to 14 days on return. Like I've been waiting pretty patiently. It's in Texas, so I might send you over there, Josh, to be like, yo, get the nasal spray up to Cleveland. But you know, because I'm like, I don't know how. I haven't got my gut tested, so I'm like, I know that I'm feeling better. I can start to absorb more food, and I'm not feeling like not having this nose drip randomly after eating certain things. Like I'm feeling better. So it's like I could tell a difference if I'm taking a tablet, but I know like the nasal spray just, it bypasses the digestion, just goes straight there. So I'll definitely send you.
Yeah. I have like a deviated septum, and like it's been like a several month process of figuring out how to like get my nose to be more clear. But like a big thing is like, do not use nasal spray. For me personally, it's like it spirals, and eventually like it'll be like hard to breathe when I'm sleeping, and it fucks my sleep up. And it's been like a whole thing. So
that's also something cool. Can definitely influence your brain health, is just being a mouth breather, because my dad had a deviated septum, and I was starting to think that I did, because I'm like, my left nose, I'm like, so I actually just had this up, like this course of like how to breathe better for deviated septums. I'm about to send it to you. Because like, dude, it was like, he was telling me all about this, because if I'm still waking up and I have this, like, basically since your drainage system is here and here and here, like if it's blocked up and backed up, like you need to make sure you're massaging it. That's why, I jump on the trampoline, feeling super inflammation, like super, and I didn't have my stuff. Like, dude, like there's so many different things to do. And
I use a Neil Medi, that thing.
Yeah.
It's like it's kind of like a neti pot, but you blast like water with these like little like salt packet type things like up your nose, and it clears it out. That's been the big thing for me. I'm blessed to not be a mouth breather, I guess, but I'm so far not a mouth breather that I cannot physically fall asleep if I'm breathing through my mouth. So what happens is if my nose is plugged at all, I'm just totally screwed. Like, so, and started using like these different nasal sprays and stuff, and that made it worse. Like Colorado at elevation, the air's really, really dry. You're at elevation. Your nose gets very sensitive to things. But using that salt, basically like rinse, I do first thing in the morning and right before bed, and then just being careful not to like, put anything up my nose. Then it's over a few months, it's cleared up for a lot. It's not amazing, but it's like I'm not getting like nosebleeds anymore. I'm able to sleep well, which is fucking awesome.
Yeah, don't do drugs.
Don't do drugs, dude.
Don't do drugs, kids.
Don't do drugs.
Can't put anything up my nose, guys.
Yeah, I would definitely be interested in learning a little bit more about that as well, because I think what we're getting at here is like everything is connected. Like everything that affects your body, affects your brain, affects your gut. It's all connected. I think one of the last questions I had for you was regarding just like general brain exercise and health. I hear, having hit my head several times and not been very nice to my brain for a portion of my life. I watch my grandparents. They always do crossword puzzles. My parents do Sudoku. Like I remember when brain games were like a big thing on your cell phone, to enhance your memory and improve cognitive function. Do you regularly practice anything like that? Or is your brain exercise more related to connecting your brain to your body?
Yes and no. I think there is a lot of like when people think like, oh, I need to do like crosswords and stuff for brain health. Like that's like a very small aspect. Definitely when you get older, like, but like the underlying things of like actually keeping your brain in optimal shape, of like having a purpose in life, surrounding yourself with people that fill you up instead of take you down. Being able to get out in nature, like all these different things have so much of a monumental impact on your and shift in your brain. But like when it comes to like the brain games, like that's one small aspect, like learning new material, learning a new instrument, learning a new language, all those things that require you to go outside of your basically like quote unquote norm. All of a sudden now I'm shifting in basically grabbing and building new neurons inside of my brain because I'm learning this new information, which now it extends into other areas of my life just because I'm learning something new. But if you don't learn anything, if you don't retain that information and review it in 48 hours, it's going to be gone. So I think the little things of like learning something new, that's like, okay, I'm going to go learn about, German business because, it's something new and something different. It doesn't mean like that, we can use it to apply in different ways. But, brain games is something that has always been there as like the thing. But I think like always make sure you're doing something new, learning something new, using your instrument. I think I grew up in playing orchestra and I played the drums. So you're always learning how to not multitask, but use different parts of your brain while reading and learning new things. So I don't want you to think like you need to go to your grandparents' house and be like, okay, let's break out the Sudoku.
That is something I wanted to ask too, before we ended the call, because it's like I feel like the three of us are in a similar situation where we have careers, like we're all entrepreneurs, we have careers where we are always learning. So like I have a video production company. Videography is something that, probably takes 20, 30, 40 years to master. And then technology is always changing. So it's like maybe you never really master it. So, I'm like, if I'm going to continue this as my career, I'm always learning. I'm constantly like learning new things. And that's what I was wondering is like, if you set your life up in that way, is that the same as like, doing brain games? And it seems like, the answer would be yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes. But also having a purpose and having, like the connection and community. I think when, I think about when my grandparents, well, the one side that were put in a nursing home, like they would continue to get their cup filled, like, if me and my kids and my wife would show up, but when, they're pulled out and they're kind of isolated and then they don't have, like friends or whatever's going on in there, all of a sudden you die a lot faster. Same thing that happened over the last couple of years. Like when people get isolated, things start to, it wasn't just like psychological, it's also the physiological effect that it has, on yourself. And that all stems from what's going on in between your ears. So it's like having the purpose, having that connection and community, even that community can be in your own home, but that's what's going to ultimately make you, live longer, and continue to thrive as you get older. And that, obviously continuing to learn and read and interact with other human beings is huge. It's undeniably huge. And it's the most simple, often overlooked thing. Because I know even my own experience, like basically locked in my house for a long time, not just because I was sick, just because I couldn't really get out. And so if I were to go to a store, like, and no matter how sick I was feeling, like talking to somebody, because I love human beings, like it would brighten me up. And so like going back home, I was like, I have like the little, like almost like a hit of like dopamine, because I was able to get a connection with Judy at the register, like feeling good. And then she was like some 70-year-old lady. It didn't matter. I think it's just especially with brain health, it's the often overlooked simple things, because everybody's looking for the next pill. Everybody wants the, the next, basically quick hack. YouTube basically already do, the basics. So like, there's always going to be that, how can I get to that next, 1%? How can I get to the next 2%? But like the foundations are everything. Everybody wants to put in a basketball hoop and an in-ground pool before their foundation is up and the home broke down. They're like, dang, dude, but how am I going to watch TV? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, dude, your house just blew away. You're not watching TV. Like, you have to build the foundation before anything happens, because otherwise it's going to blow down.
Even like doing this podcast is probably good. You know what I mean?
Dude, because you can connect with people all around the world within the click of a button. That's all it is. And I think anybody can start it. Like, okay, I'm going to start, my monster truck Hot Wheels podcast. Like, awesome. Like, who am I going to connect with? I'm going to connect with freaking, it doesn't matter. Like, it's just crazy. You can do. But then again, it's ultimately up to the individual to be like, I need to go out and seek what it is that I want and I desire, and I'm going to go get it.
Yeah. Dude. Excuse me. It's wild how, in talking to you, how similar the process for improving brain health is for improving bodily health, and like your ability to move your body versus your ability to function at a high level with your brain. And like, in having this conversation, there were a few times where I was like, oh, wow, that's surprising. Like, it's very similar. And then you think about it a little more, you're like, it shouldn't be surprising. Like, that's that's how it should be. All these things are really good for you. And a lot of them are good for your body because they're good for your brain, because they're good for your gut. They're good for your brain because they're good for your body. Like, everything is connected. So love this conversation, incredibly valuable for me, and I think for a lot of people who are listening. And also, I don't know about you, Travis, but I hope for the listeners as well, this took a lot of the, I don't know if I want to call it like guilt or anxiety. Hi, Mika. Our husky is talking. She wants to be on the pod, dude. It took a lot of that like guilt and anxiety that I've had from like not having always been very nice to my brain.
Yeah.
Knowing that like I am, by taking care of my body, I am taking care of my brain. I am doing the right things. Just because I'm not doing the freaking Sudoku and crossword puzzle doesn't mean that I'm not doing things that are good for my brain. I eat well, I train, I move my body, I have a strong routine. I'm always well hydrated. Like I take my supplementation. I get my morning movement, my sleep and circadian rhythm is strong. Like, and if I'm doing those things, then I feel a lot better. So I appreciate the help in me overcoming some of that guilt and anxiety that I've had.
Yeah, no, trust me, dude, you're never too late to start. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. Like you're never too down. And I said, I can hopefully be that example to be like, okay, your brain was really bad and, bouncing back. So like, don't beat yourself up thinking like, okay, man, I'm going to be the youngest dude in a nursing home. I can't wait.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
The thought has definitely crossed my mind. And I know like there's also some, my grandfather died from dementia. And so I know like that's always in the back of my head too. And I'm like, great. I did drugs. I hit my head. Like I did a whole bunch of shit. And, it feels a lot better to know that we are doing the right thing. So I appreciate you sharing your story and sharing your knowledge with us. It was definitely helpful.
Of course. Man. Of course.
Yeah. Now I know like, obviously we're tight. I know Travis is going to want to follow you and learn more from you. Our listeners are too. So before you take off, man, why don't you give yourself the plug? I'm sure a lot of people are going to have questions. Where can we find you and what do you have going on?
Yeah, at NeuroFitNick, NeuroFitNick. Yeah, I said messages are always open, always down to connect and always down to answer whatever it is I can help with. I mean, definitely I said I'm back, I'm alive. I'm back to training clients and like life has just never felt so refreshing and I feel like I've just been in prison and I'm out. And so I am actually working on a foundation as well called Concussion Courage Foundation to really just talk about the impact of second impact syndrome, especially with even thinking about my 14-year-old. Like the game of football has definitely gotten a lot better, but still there's still, so much information of like just how coaches can learn, how players can learn, just learn from my mistake so that you guys don't have to make it. Because, I said, dude, you only get one brain, you only get one body, and people treat it like it's it's refundable. They can go back and buy a new one, but you can't. And so I think that's the biggest takeaway of like, it doesn't matter where you're at, you can always rebound and rebuild.
I love that. Well, y'all, to the listeners, I highly recommend you go to give Nick a follow. His Instagram and TikTok is loaded with like really helpful information like this that's super easy to digest. So make sure you check Nick out. Nick, thank you again, man, for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. And to the listeners, thank you again for tuning in to another episode. We will see y'all next week.